Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Stute Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badharayanam Sutrabhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. Hari Om. The mind stirs up the jiva into all kinds of activity. The mind dilutes this jiva. The mind ties down the jiva to the body, sense organs, to prana, and all the various conditions. Identifying with all of them, we take their qualities as our quality. And it makes us run around as I and mine, ahankara, mamakara, for all those activities. I am doing this. This is my idea. This is my friend. This is my relationship, all that. And the mind does this by superimposing the limitations of the upadhis. And that is the cause for all suffering. Therefore, the wise declare, because of this ignorant mind alone, the whole world is wallowing in samsara. The medicine to cure this disease is tanmanashodhanam karyam prayatnena mumukshuna vishuddhe sati chaitasmin mukti karapalayate. The medicine is the seeker of liberation must put forth effort to purify that mind, because mind is the problem. The impure mind is a problem. So purify it, liberation will be attained easily. Then what should I do to purify that mind? He says, Mokshaikasak Mokshaikasaktya Vishayeshu Ragam Nirmulya Sanyasya Cha Sarvakarma Satshraddhayaya Shravanadisto Rajasvabhavam Sadhunoti Buddhe. First, make moksha the top priority in life. Root out the attachment to objects. Develop mumukshutva. Develop vairagya. Give up all the extrovert pursuits to the extent possible. Be committed to jnana yoga. Have faith in the Shastra and the teachings of the Guru. If you follow these steps, the person destroys the ignorance and erroneous notion. The Manomaya is not the Atma, because Manomayo napi bhavet paratma hi adyanta adyantavatvat parinami bhavat dukkatmakatvat vishayatva hetoho drashta hi drishyatmataya na drashtah. Mind has a beginning, it has an end, constantly changes. It's of nature of sorrow, and it's an object of experience. So all this was discussion about Manomaya. And that concluded with verse 149. Now we are ready to look at Vijnanamaya Kosha. I'm sorry, the discussion started in 149 and ended with 183. So we begin the Vijnanamaya Kosha from verse 184. Let us read. Buddhir buddhindriyai sardam Buddhir buddhindriyai sardam Savrittih kartru lakshanah Savrittih kartru lakshanah Vijnanamaya kosha syat Vijnanamaya kosha syat Pumsa samsara karanam Pumsa samsara karanam Buddhir buddhindriyai sardam Savrittih kartru lakshanah Vijnanamaya kosha syat Pumsa samsara karanam. So now we enter, after Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, now we get into the fourth one, Vijnanamaya Kosha. The discussion starts here with verse 184 and will go up to 206. In Bhashyakara defines Vijnanamaya Kosha here. Buddhihi, the intellect, Buddhi Indriyehi Sardam, along with 5 organs of knowledge. The intellect along with the 5 jnanendriyas. Savvrittihi, along with its vrittis. Thought modifications, vritti, thought modification. And that too, the specific thought known as aham vritti, as the Vijnanamaya Kosha. That is the intellectual sheath. Here we should remember, we have seen before, manas and buddhi, the mind and intellect, are not totally different substances. They are all one only. When I say a substance, the subtle substance, it's only one thing. The mind is just like the body. The body is gross, mind is subtle. That's the only difference. Mm-hmm. Then what about buddhi? Buddhi is also the same substance. Mm-hmm. Then why do you differentiate mind and intellect? The two names are given based on the type of thought that is being entertained. Mm-hmm. So quite often this confuses people. So I've mentioned it many, many times. Various texts we have studied, I've mentioned that. But Shankaracharya covers this topic again. So make sure you understand. When the anatma vritti takes place, and it is the idam vritti, any thought modification that reveals the external world. This is such an object. I know the object. And that kind of thing, where the mind is an instrumental role. As we have said, the sense organs go out and they envelop the various objects and bring that data to the mind. And the mind processes that, such an instrument, and says, this is a part, this is a card, this is a dot. Okay? So like that, that is mind. But then there is another thought that happens, and that is called buddhi. What does that buddhi do? It gives rise to aham vritti, the I thought. Vijnanamaya kosha, ahankarah kartru lakshanah. It is a karta of all actions. I am doing this. This I notion. So manomaya is presented as karanam, and vijnanamaya is presented as the karta. This is a little bit different from what we have seen before. We usually differentiate mind and intellect as mind is the seat of feelings, emotions, etc. And it's a deliberation function. This chanchala is there in the mind, to do this or not to do that. Those type of thoughts we associate with mind. And then when there is a determination, yes, this is set, I made this decision. A deterministic thought is said to be the function of the intellect. That is another way the differentiation is made. And there again, in the decisiveness, this aham vritti. So here the differentiation is made, the mind as karanam and intellect as karta. And karta also will give rise to bhokta. Karta, bhokta, etc. They are all in the buddhi. That gives rise to the Vijnanamaya kosha. And in that intellect, along with the jnanendriyas, organs of knowledge, has to be involved in that. Okay. Now, he says, Vijnanamaya kosha pumsaha samsara karanam. So here he says, this Vijnanamaya kosha is a cause for samsara for a man, for a human being. Then you begin to wonder. We went through this elaborate discussion how Manomaya Kosha is the cause for all problems. Mind alone is the cause of bondage. Mind alone is the cause of liberation. All that we went through. Now you say Vijnanamaya Kosha is samsara karana. So which is correct? Huh? Is the mind the cause or intellect the cause? Fact is, both are samsara karana. Because a doer can do something only when there is an instrument. So when you take the perspective from the standpoint of the instrument, yeah, you say mind is the karana. Mind as the karanam is the karana. Mind as the karta, that is also karana. So both are correct only. So Shankaracharya says, Manakaranam Vijnanamaya is also karana. Both mind and intellect are said to be the cause of samsara. Continuing. Anuvrajat set pratibimba shakti. Anuvrajat chit pratibimba shakti. Vijnana samya prakriter vikarah. Vijnana samya prakriter vikarah. Kriyavan ahametyajasram. Jnana kriyavan ahametyajasram. Dehendriyadeshvabhimanyate brasham. Dehendriyasdev abhimanyate brasham. Anavrajachet pratibimba shakti vijnana samya prakrute vikarah. Jnana kriyavan ahametyajasram. Dehendriyadeshabhimanyate brasham. So the previous verse, Shankaracharya said, Vijnanamaya is the karta, doer, and that is the cause of samsara. In this verse, he explains how Vijnanamaya causes samsara. The mechanism of samsara is explained. I'll first give you the gist, and then we will go into the details. A lot of technicalities of the Shastra are brought in here. Now, Vijnanamaya, I told you, is a subtle substance. It's material only. It is made of trigunas, comes from Maya, it's a product of Maya, so it is matter. Therefore, and it is a product of subtle elements. Which is matter, so it is material only, so it is inert by itself. Is naturally by itself inert only. It is made up of only achetana vastu. Achetana pancha bhutani. The inert 5 elements. Even though it is intrinsically inert, because of the subtle nature, because of its fine nature, it is able to reflect the Atma Chaitanya. Able to reflect Atma Chaitanya. You all know a mirror is able to reflect. If I take a mirror and I look at the mirror, it's able to reflect my face. But if on the other hand, if I say, let us say, the sleeve of my shirt and look at it, I cannot see the reflection in that cloth. What is a cloth made of? Matter only. Mirror, matter. Both are material in nature, but the mirror is able to reflect, but the cloth is not. So even though the two are both matter, one has the ability to reflect. In the same way, the buddhi, even though it is made up of matter only, it has the ability to reflect consciousness because it is sattva pradhan. Sattva tamas, sattva rajo tamas gunas, sattva is more. And with that, it is able to reflect. Of course, it's not its own, it is borrowed consciousness. Thereby, the mind, intellect, etc., they appear to be sentient, chetan. But it is only borrowed. So, Shankaracharya says, anuvrajat chit pratibimba shaktihi vijnana samyah. That kosha, which is known as Vijnanamaya, is endowed with Pratibimba Shakti, borrowed sentience, reflected consciousness. The buddhi by itself is jada, inert. It is made up of the 5 subtle elements only. Therefore, buddhi is a bhautika vastu, physical material, but it is subtle. Still material, still insentient. However, the buddhi has the unique ability, power of borrowing chit, consciousness. And that's what Shankaracharya calls pratibimba shakti, the power of reflection. Here, shakti is the power of sentience, power of being alive, liveliness. So the pratibimba shakti is there in buddhi, intellect. Not only the buddhi enjoys this borrowed consciousness, but wherever buddhi goes, the borrowed consciousness goes along with it. The reflected consciousness travels with buddhi. So he uses the word anuvrajat, going behind. So buddhi has the power to reflect consciousness, which goes behind it all the time. I've used this expression before. Chidabhasa rides on the buddhi. It's always there with it. Thus, we have a sentient buddhi. The sentient buddhi is called Vijnanamaya Kosha. The Vijnanamaya has to borrow that sentience. It borrows that consciousness. Prakrutehe vikaraha, because by itself, buddhi is a product of prakriti, maya prakriti, which is basic matter, material in nature only. Once it has borrowed that consciousness, once it has borrowed the sentience, it can do things by itself. It is sentient now. It has become a Chetana Vastu. It's capable of thinking, planning, acting, and so on. All that it can do. A mirror cannot illumine any object. By itself, the mirror cannot illumine anything. But a source of light, let us say, the sunlight falls on the mirror, then the reflection in the mirror becomes a secondary source of light. Elsewhere, I've given you this example. If you have a dark room and the sunlight doesn't fall on the. It's an external, the window, there may be a little crack in the window, but the sunlight is not able to go through because there is an awning or whatever. Okay. So the room is still dark. But if you have a mirror that you place outside and direct a beam of light, the sunlight falls on the mirror and the reflected beam goes through the window. Then the room will get light. So the mirror by itself cannot, the sunlight is not there, the mirror, wherever you place it, it cannot light up the dark room. But when the sun is out there and that sunlight falls on the mirror, it can. So similarly, buddhi by itself is inert, but when it borrows consciousness, it becomes sentient. So it is said here, the live buddhi is now jnana kriyavan, capable of knowing, doing all that. Jnana, it is possible, kriya, it is possible for the buddhi. Buddhi vijnanamaya jiva now takes up varieties of activities. On the other hand, an inert object in creation, it cannot do any activity. A desk, it will stay where it is put. It doesn't move unless you move it. You're sitting in front of a desk and it starts to move, then you get scared. Okay, so inert objects don't move. Newton's law also says that. Okay, so even inert object moves, then you know that there is a Chaitana Vastu which is pushing it or pulling it. So these upadhis, this body, the senses, buddhi, everything is jada by themselves, all of them are, but now they are active. The body is active, the mind is active, intellect is active. In other words, we are alive. It can do all kinds of things. Janati, it knows. Ichchati. It has so many desires. I want to do this, I want to do that. Yatate, it puts forth effort. So, Ichcha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Jnana Shakti, all that is there. This is called life. What is life? You learn, know things. Once you know things, you start developing desires. Once desires come, you want to do things to fulfill those desires. When will you desire a car or a computer? You first know that there is something called a car or a computer. In the old days, when we did not have computers, did we have a desire for a car? We didn't know. It was not even there. Computers, same way. But when we started to see those things and see what all it can do for us, then we develop a desire for that. I want to get a car. I want to get a computer and all that. So that is what he says, jnana kriyavan. Here, kriya means activities. So endowed with jnana pursuit. Not only that, he develops ahamiti, the I notion. Once the consciousness comes, there is the self-consciousness, self-reference. That is the uniqueness of the sentient entity. every sentient entity has a sense of I. The table does not have an I notion. The table doesn't come out to you and tell you, if I'm not here, you cannot sit and write, you cannot put the computer, you cannot, sign on and participate in this class. The table doesn't say all that. But we do. Our buddhi has that. The first person singular I, that is a sign of sentience. And once that arises, everything else is either a second person or a third person. I has to come first, then you come, and he, she, it, all that comes. So the first person arises when there is a sentient activity. Jiva becomes sentient. So the first thing that arises is aham, I. And then tvam and saha, all that will come. Therefore, Shankaracharya says, ahamiti abhimanyate. This jiva alone develops self-reference. He develops the ego and individuality, the I notion. The notion I is ajasram, constantly there. Whereas you and he constantly changes. Somebody who's standing in front of you, that person go away and a different person comes. So when you say you may be referring to a different person. Similarly, when you talk in referring to this or that can change. But I don't change. I continue. So let us see what all things are involved when Jiva uses the word I. First, the buddhi is there. Then the reflected consciousness has to be there. If buddhi alone is there, the I notion cannot come because buddhi is inert by itself. Intrinsically, it is jada. Therefore, buddhi alone cannot say I. Therefore, along with the buddhi, the reflection is required. The mere reflection alone cannot say I. So it requires a reflecting medium. Only when buddhi is there, the reflection is possible. Therefore, the jiva consists of buddhi and the reflection, the reflecting medium and the reflection. There is also a third factor. What is that? The original also has to be there. Before the reflection, the original has to be there. Original consciousness has to be there. Only the mirror is there. There is no sunlight. Reflecting medium is there. Sunlight is not there. Where can there be a reflection? So all three have to be there. So the original is called Grivastha Shirah. If you're talking now another way to look at it also, if you want to have the reflection of your face, your original face has to be there. Otherwise, you will not see your face. So all that. In the same way, in the buddhi, if the reflection should come, there should be the original consciousness also. Therefore, jiva consists of the three factors: buddhi, pratibimba chaitanya, and bimba chaitanya. Again, we have talked about this. This should not come something new to you. We studied elaborately in Panchadashi. The jiva actually consists of these three components: reflecting medium, the reflection, as well as the original. Even though all these three are there, I am not aware of this fact. This is where the fundamental problem of ignorance comes in. Instead of claiming the original consciousness as myself of these three components, we forget about the original consciousness, pure consciousness, Chet, and we identify with everything else. Keeping aside what is to be claimed, we keep on claiming everything else. This is the tragedy. Because whenever I am claiming, whatever I am claiming, that gives problems. Whatever gives me peace and purnatvam, fulfillment, I do not claim, I disregard. What when claimed would be wonderful, that we lose sight of. Whatever when claimed create problems, we jump on that. And we get knocked about. That's our problem. That is samsara. So Shankaracharya says, Deha indriyadishu abhimanyate. This unfortunate, ignorant, indiscriminate jiva identifies with Deha, the body, physical body, and the indriya, the sense organs. And they are all reflecting media. Adishu, etc., he says, referring to buddhi, the reflection, all of them. And it is not just a casual identification, it's a powerful clutch. You hold on to that body, we hold on to that mind, we hold on to that individuality. So intense is our identification. Even when the Shastra and the Guru, if they tie a big fat rope and pull it with all their might, we don't come out of that ignorance. Okay. So in America, they have this tractor pull, and then they pull a plane and all that. They can do all that, but this ignorance, they cannot pull out of us. It is that much stronger. And once in a while, it seems to step out. This 1 hour of class. Okay. Yes. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. All right. I see that. I've seen the light. And class ends and you step out, back to whatever it was before. So Shankaracharya is actually wailing. Poor chap, he is sad, saying that he is suffering. Therefore, he uses the word brisham. Brisham means intensely, forcibly, he holds on to that ignorance. Continuing, he says, 186. Anadikalo yaham swabhavah. Anadikalo yamaham swabhavah. Jivas samasta vyavahara vodha. Jivas samasta vyavahara vodha. Karoti karmanyapi purvavasanah. Karoti karmanyapi purvavasanah. Punyanya punyani cha tatpalani. Punyanya punyani cha tatpalani. Anadikalo yamaham swabhavah. Jiva samasta vyavahara bodha. Karoti karmanyapi purvavasanah. punyanya punyani cha tatpalani. So he gives some more details about the jiva, which is the buddhi plus reflected consciousness, otherwise called as Vijnanamaya kosha. Vijnanamaya. So ayam jivaha aham swabhavaha. This jiva, Vijnanamaya, consisting of the buddhi and the reflection, constantly refers to himself as aham, aham, aham. I. Instead of claiming Atma Chaitanyam, the original consciousness. He claims himself as I am the Buddhi, etc. And therefore, Aham Swabhavaha, the one whose nature is constant self-identification, constant self-reference. Swami Chinmaya uses the word egocentric. He's an egocentric person. Everything is centered around his ego. When did all this story start? Anadi Kalaha. It is there from the beginningless time. What about Pralaya? During Pralaya also, the jiva doesn't go away. Many people say, one day I will go to Ishvara. We do not accept that. If all the people will naturally go to Ishvara, why should we do any sadhana? Therefore, no. Even in Pralaya, we remain in a potential form. It has not manifested. Jivahood has not manifested. In the next Srishti, when Pralaya ends and creation begins, the Jiva comes back. And so Jiva has been existing beginningless time, will continue endlessly until self-knowledge. Once you gain the self-knowledge, that Jivahood will end. Therefore, Jiva is Samasta Vyavahara Bodha, the one who carries out, the one who performs all transactions of life. It can be through the body, it can be through speech, it can be mental. Manasa, Vacha, Karmana, Kaya, Vang, Manaha. It can be secular transaction or even sacred, religious. It can be actions that are enjoined, that are prescribed. Or it can be all karmas are done by the Vijnanamaya only, which indicates Atma. Atma is Akarta Bhokta. It's the Vijnanamaya who is the Karta and Bhokta. And in Bhagavad Gita also we have seen Nanyam Gunebhya Kartaram Yada Drashtanu Pashyati Gunebhyascha Param Veti Madbhavam Sa. Vijnanamaya is the Karta. Also it says, Vijnanam Yajnam Tanute Karmani Tanute Picha. Vijnanamaya alone is the Karta. It's not the Atma. Atma doesn't do an action. It is a Karta. The Jiva, Buddhi, Vijnanamaya, Punyani, Apunyani cha Karmani Karoti. Does good and bad actions. Punya and Apunya are Papa. Both moral, immoral, righteous, unrighteous, all kinds of actions. Some of them are out of ignorance, some of them deliberately. In spite of knowledge, this fellow does. The quality of action is determined by two forces. One force is our knowledge, and the other is our habit, force of habit. If a person smokes, it can be for two reasons. One reason is he doesn't know that smoking will kill him. It's injurious to him. He may not be aware. And these days, that would not be excused. That message has been ingrained into us. Then why does he still smoke? Habit. He cannot kick the habit. Suppose somebody has been smoking for a long period of time, years together, then he comes to know all the bad effects of smoking, but continues to smoke. In that case, what is the cause of smoking? No more lack of knowledge, it is vasana. It's not able to give up that habit. So all our actions are that way. They are based on knowledge and vasana. So Shankaracharya says, Purva vasanaha punyani apunyani cha karmani karoti. The jiva does good actions, bad actions, prior habits. Unfortunately, every action produces results, and the produced result comes back to me alone. The karta will have to be the bhokta also. That is the law of karma. Tat palani, the jiva has to experience the results of his action. It's not only a karta, jiva is a bhokta also. More of it we will see in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.